You start off correct? Okay, thank you. Sound? Hey, Kumar, is side of thing? Side cost name and Museum. Correct. Sound of good morning, everybody. I welcome you one and all for today's lecture class. And today's lecture class is on accidents and injuries. So all of you know how accident can be causing damage to the life and property of a person, and how it is going to affect directly and indirectly to a family. So you must have been a witness to a lot of accidents and injuries. And today we are going to discuss in depth the different types of accidents and injuries, and with a special focus on road traffic accidents and injuries. Now let us understand what is an accident. An accident has been defined as unexpected, unplanned occurrence which may involve injury. So this is an unplanned occurrence. Nobody has planned that, and it is unexpected. Nobody can expect that. And this occurrence is not predictable. So this, when it involves injury, causing some damage to our tissues, organs, any part of the body, and it's called an accident. A WHO advisory group in 1956 defined accidents as unpremeditated event resulting in recognizable damage. So it is unpremeditated, something which is not orchestrated before, or in a sense that it is prepared before. It is unpremeditated. It happens all of a sudden, and it results in a recognizable damage, a damage which can be recognizable, a damage which can be seen from far and near. So this is what is the definition given by the WHO advisory group in 1956. According to another definition, an accident is that occurrence in a sequence of events which usually produces unintended injury, death, or property damage. So earlier I was telling about it is injury, death, or property damage. Sometimes it can be damage to the property also. So some part of the building is hit, some part of the house is hit. So it can happen in many times. So an accident can result in damage to the property also. Accidents represent a major epidemic of NCDs in the present century. So if you look at the different, non-communicable diseases, accidents represent a major epidemic. They are sort of an epidemic. They are occurring everywhere and every place in the world. And all the populations are affected without any distinction of a particular country or an area. So they represent a major epidemic of non-communicable diseases in the present century. Accidents have their own natural history. What is natural history? Natural history is pre-pathogenesis and pathogenesis. And they follow the same epidemiological pattern as any other disease. That is, agent, host, and environmental factors, they interact together to produce injury or damage. So if you look at any disease as such, we see we have an agent, we have a host, we have an environment. All these factors of agent factors, host factors, environmental factors, they interact with each other. So here in accidents to produce injury and damage. So like other diseases, accidents have also their own natural history. They occur more particularly in certain age groups at certain times of the day and week and at certain localities. So many times they occur at certain times of the day, and certain days of the week and in certain localities. Some localities are accident prone, some time of the day is accident prone. For example, if you look at late evening or afternoons, or sometimes if it is on Saturday and Sunday, we find that there is an increase in the number of accidents, either because people are free on the day, either because people rush for their offices, or either because the localities sometimes have blind turns which may result in accidents because there is no impending alarm to people on the other side whether the accident can occur. So especially in certain localities. So the susceptibility is increased by somebody having an alcohol. Suppose the effect of alcohol, as we know, that alcohol impairs vision, impairs tactile sensation, also impairs the person's ability to judge uh, the distance and the speed, distance of the vehicle for the person, and the speed also. And other drugs also, which may also affect, like barbiturates, amphetamine, cannabis, all such drugs, as well as psychological, physiological states such as fatigue. Many a times you work all through the day, you're busy in the office, you're down with fatigue. So this fatigue also results in accidents, because again your sense of alertness is grossly impaired. Majority of the accidents are preventable if we take care, and if we have all the alertness, and majority of the accidents are preventable. And if we are maintain our vehicles, if we follow traffic rules, we find that most of the rules, most of the times, accidents are preventable. How do you measure the problem of accidents? How do you quantify the problem? When you ask somebody, what is the extent of the problem? What is the problem statement of the accidents? How do you measure them? How do you quantify them? How do you say that this much number of accidents are occurring in an area? But mortality means deaths. So here, proportional mortality rate, it is the number of deaths due to accidents per the total number of deaths per 100 deaths or 1,000 deaths. So it is the number of deaths due to accidents per 100 or 1,000 deaths occurring in a particular area. Number of deaths per million population. So it is also counted, the mortality is also by the number of deaths per million population. Always do remember that mortality means deaths. You should remember mortality is deaths, morbidity is disease, sickness, like that. So number of deaths per million population, what are the number of deaths that are occurring per million population? The term killed in an accident means that, suppose somebody, it means person who is dead at the spot, or who dies within 30 days of the occurrence of the accident. So a person who is killed outright at the spot of the accident, or who dies within 30 days of the accident. So that is what is by the term killed in an accident is used. Now, death rate per 1,000 registered vehicles per year is also counted at the death rate per 1,000 registered. Those vehicles which are registered in an RTO, Road Transport Office, you can also calculate how many deaths per 1,000 registered vehicles per year. These are all various indirect measures to quantify the problem of accidents in a particular area or in a country. Number of accidents or fatalities and the ratio of the number of vehicles per kilometer or passengers per kilometer. This is also one way of measuring mortality. Deaths of vehicle occupants. This is also very important, because many of the times the driver dies, we are not bothered about the fatalities, enumerating the fatalities of the other members who have occupied the vehicle. So death of vehicle occupants per 1,000 vehicles per year also contributes to the mortality due to road traffic accidents or are due to accidents. Morbidity is measured in terms of serious injuries and slight injuries. So how do you say that morbidity in case of an accident? How many people are actually affected by serious injuries, like loss of vision, loss of a limb, loss of what you call gross accident to the head. So, or it might be slight injuries like an abrasion, or it's just an abrasion, or just a, what do you say, or a grazed mark on the shin of a person or on the thigh, either because of the contact with the road. The seriousness of the injury is assessed by a scale known as AIS, or abbreviated injury scales. Many times the morbidity reports in a particular country are not precise or not clear, and many times they don't give a correct picture about the what you say, the amount of morbidity in a particular area. So what we have learned about the quantification of the problem is, number one is mortality, number two is morbidity, number three is disability. An important outcome of the accident process is disability, which may be temporary or permanent, partial or total. Measurement of disability in terms of duration is a limited concept. So disability is what you say because it's an important outcome. How many people are exactly disabled? This can be temporary or permanent. Somebody has a loss of limb, is not able to walk. Somebody has what you call it can be a partial also, decrease in the function of a particular part of the body. So measurement of disability in terms of duration is a limited concept. The International Classification of Functioning Disabilities and Health is an attempt by WHO to estimate the disability of individuals at a given moment. So we have to do a classification of functioning disabilities and health. So at a given point of time, we can estimate the disability of individuals. Now, what is the extent of problem in a particular area, say in the world and in our own country? So as we understand, injuries constitute a variable epidemic. Actually, it is a veritable epidemic. Injuries are increasing day by day, months and years. So injuries we find because of accidents are increasing every day. And these injuries can be unintentional and intentional. So injuries are commonly classified based upon intentionality, whether it is done by intention or it is by unintentional, without any thought or without any intent to cause injury. Number one is road traffic injuries, poisoning, falls, fire and burn injuries, and drowning are unintentional injuries. Somebody drowns, it is unintentional. It doesn't want to die because of drowning. Fire or burn injuries, these are all accidental. Intentional injuries include interpersonal violence. Suppose there is a violence between people fighting, or there may be a mob violence, or it can be collective violence like a war, which are often intentional, and sometimes suicide, which a person undertakes because of some problem. These are all intentional injuries. So injuries are classified based on intentionality, unintentional injuries, and intentional injuries. Poisoning, drowning, burns, and maltreatment by caregivers affects small children, while RTS, interpersonal violence, and sport injuries tend to affect older children, adolescents, and adults. So usually poisoning and drowning and burns are usually sometimes there are many reports, and then of late there are many videos what we see how the maltreatment by caregivers, those what you say people who come to take care of small children. They may be ill-treating the small children. They may be beating them. They may be what you call affecting harm to them. So it's very common these days, and one has to be very careful while employing such people or monitoring such people. The leading cause of injury-related deaths in road traffic injuries is followed by suicide, falls, and interpersonal violence. So injury-related deaths is road traffic injuries. This is followed by suicide, falls, and interpersonal violence. Table in the next slide shows global estimated deaths by type of injury percentage of total deaths, true death rate by 1 lakh population, and a specific death rate per 1 lakh population due to injuries in the year 2016. So, year 2016, we have the leading cause of injuries and deaths, unintentional injuries and intentional injuries. Unintentional injuries are deaths due to unintentional injuries are 3,459, and the group death rate is 46 per 1 lakh population, and the specific death rate is 45 per 1 lakh population. Unintentional. Intentional injuries are the deaths due are 1,454, and they constitute less, and they constitute only 2.6% of all the deaths, unlike unintentional injuries constitute 6% of all the deaths. And the group death rate is also less compared to that of unintentional injuries, and the age-specific death rate is 19.4 per 1 lakh population. So we have unintentional injuries as road injury, poisoning, falls, fire and heat and salt substance, drowning, exposure to mechanical forces, natural disasters, other unintentional injuries. Intentional injuries are self-harm, interpersonal violence, collective violence, and legal intervention. Injuries and violence are included in multiple sustainable development goals targets. So we have sustainable development goals which are 2015 to 2030, and these goals are very important. We have a lot of number of targets related to health, and injuries and violence are included in the sustainable development goals. Road traffic injuries and intentional injuries are included The health goal, sustainable development goal 3 with targets related to balance and disasters, part of other goals. Table in the next slide indicators enumerates the indicators related to the goal targets, the global and the Indian scenario. Selected indicators of sustainable development goals, global and India scenario. So average death rate due to natural disaster, it should be less than 0.1. India, it is less than 0.1. Mortality rate due to homicide 6.4. It is 2.1 in India. Estimated direct deaths from major conflicts, it is less than 0.1 in India compared to global, what you call number of deaths, that is 2.5 per lakh population. Mortality rate, unintentional poisoning, India is 1.9. Suicide mortality rate is 14.7 compared to the global average of 10.6. It means more and more suicides are taking place, almost 15 per 1 lakh population in the year 2016. At road traffic mortality, global number is 18 per 1 lakh population compared to 8 in India, which is less compared to the global figure. Accidents are definitely on an increase in India. Causes are increased mechanization in the agriculture industry. Many times we are adapting the latest machines, the latest tractors, latest harvester machines in agriculture and industry, and many times these workers are not aware because of low literacy rates, or either because they're not used to such type of machines in agriculture industry. So increased mechanization is often cause of accident in our country. Induction of semi-skilled and unskilled workers in various operations, trained and untrained people. Rapid increase in vehicular traffic has resulted in increase of morbidity and mortality due to accidents. So vehicular density has also increased, and most vehicles are, you have the motorcycles, and sometimes three-wheelers, mopeds, which are quite unstable and which may cause a lot of injuries and deaths due to accidents. Overcrowding, lack of awareness, and poor implementation of essentially safety precautions result in a large number of accidents. Safety precautions like wearing of a helmet, following traffic rules, and wearing of a seat belt are very, very important, which may help in the decrease in the number of accidents. Consumption of poisonous substances accidentally or intentionally is also on the rise. Usually pesticides, and unintentionally these pesticides may contaminate the food, or it can be consumed intentionally because either because of failure to failure for a loan. Usually suicide, farmers commit suicides, and many a times when they are not able to pay the loan, they commit suicides. Many of them, they don't have a crop, they commit suicides. Deaths, disability, and hospitalization due to injuries continue to have an impact on the socio-economic loss. Many times the breadwinner is lost as a result. The individuals, families, societies, and infrastructure is also affected. The traditional view of injury as an accident has resulted in the neglect of aspect of public health. So when we look at injury, we consider it due to accident, and we consider it because it is an accident, we don't focus much on this particular aspect of public health. But as of now, injuries are now low in priority for policy makers. The policy makers are the people who are at the hem of governance, and only few plans are drawn for injury prevention. Very few countries have plans which are implementation, or which are actually implemented for preventing injuries. So reported number of accidental deaths in India by the year 2014-15 are given in category wise, like natural calamity and natural causes. So in year 2014 and 15, whether there is a mitigation of the problem, we can understand by this particular table. Now, what are the different types of accidents? Accidents can be classified or categorized as road traffic accidents, domestic accidents like drowning, burns, falls, poisoning, snake bite, industrial accidents, railway accidents, and violence. Road traffic accidents, as I said today, we'll be focusing on RTAs or road traffic accidents. So what is the extent of road traffic accident in the world? Motor vehicle accidents rank first among all the fatal accidents. Every year, almost 1.25 million people die from road accidents in the world. In addition, for every death, there are around 20 to 50 non-fatal injuries and 10 to 20 serious injuries requiring long periods of expensive care, nursing, and treatment. Road traffic fatalities is higher in the younger age group. Children and young people under the age of 25 years are almost 3 times likely to be killed in a car crash, and young females. Nearly 90% of the deaths that result from RTS occur in low-income countries and middle-income countries, and it is the people from lower socioeconomic status that are more often involved in road traffic accidents. In India, in the year 2015, a total of 1.77 lakh RTAs were reported in the country. The rate of deaths per 1,000 vehicles has decreased from 1.6 to 1.2 in 2011. The rate of accidental death per 1,000 vehicles was highest in Bihar and Sikkim, 1.6 per 1,000 vehicles, followed by West Bengal, and 1.5 either because of population density or either because of people not following the traffic rules, either because of vehicles not properly maintained in those states, or either because of the laxity of the traffic police or the police in general. 24.9% of the road traffic accidents are occupants of two-wheelers. Maximum number of accidents occurred between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. time period. Maximum number of accidents were reported in the month of May, followed by January. So these are the what you call the trends of accidents that are occurring in our country. What are the risk factors and what are the factors exactly responsible for these accidents? Number one is speed. Second is drunk driving or drink driving. Motorcycle helmets, seat belts, child restraints, and distracted driving. Speed. We know that speed thrills, but it kills. This is a often quoted statement that is always put in big billboards and in near the octroi, near the toll gate points where people are given awareness or people see that. So speed, an increase in average speed is directly related to both the likelihood of a crash happening and the severity of the consequences of the crash. Some of the factors are pedestrians have a 90% chance of surviving a car crash at 30 kilometers per hour or below, less than 50% chance of surviving an impact of 45 kilometers per hour. So if you are driving at 30 kilometers per hour, there's every chance that the pedestrians who are on the road, the people who use the road for walking and crossing the road, they have a 90% chance of survival. Whereas if the speed limit of your vehicle is about 45 kilometers per hour, say if you're driving a two-wheeler or a car, there's only 50% of chance of surviving an impact in pedestrians. 30 kilometers per hour speed zones can reduce the risk of a crash, and the recommended areas where vulnerable road users are common. Many times in the highways we find boards or electronic boards or boards indicating us the speed that we need to drive in those areas, and also warning us that we are exceeding the speed, because there are many laser points that are established at various parts of the highways which actually measure the speed at which we go, and also the speed zones also indicate the danger of a crash that are occurring in those areas. So we need to control the speed of the vehicle, or we need to drive very carefully to avoid serious road accidents. Apart from reducing road traffic injuries, low average traffic speeds can have also positive effects on health outcomes. So if we drive slowly, probably we may reach our goal, and this will have a very good effect upon mental state as well as physical state of the person. Next is drink driving. People who drink alcohol. When we use the word drink, we mean alcohol. So drinking and driving increases both the risk of a crash and the likelihood that the death or serious injury will result. Many times, so when we drink, we should be responsible enough not to drive the vehicle or remain where we are, or take the help of a sober person or a person who is non-alcoholic or who has not consumed a drink to drive us to safety or to drop us at our homes. So This is very common. This is very common in cities and in Western countries. So many times people drink and drive, and this impairs the person's ability to judge the speed as well as the and also impairs the vision also. The risk of being involved in crash increases significantly above a blood alcohol concentration of 0.04 grams per deciliter. Laws that establish blood alcohol concentration of 0.05 grams per deciliter or below are effective in reducing the number of alcohol-related crashes. Enforcing sobriety checkpoints and random breathing can lead to reductions in alcohol. There are many checkpoints on the highway and on the roads where the traffic police comes, checks your breath, especially of the driver, whether the driver has alcohol. And if there are times he is found having an alcohol concentration, blood alcohol concentration more than a certain level, the person is immediately made to stop and transferred to a local police station where he is given certain advice and is retained there so that he is not allowed to drive. And many times if they are found in 2 or 3 occasions, many times his driving license is seized or crashed so that the person may not be able to drive the vehicle again. There may be seizure of the vehicle sometimes. So sobriety checkpoints and random breath testing can lead to reductions in alcohol-related crashes by about 20%, and they are seen to be very cost effective. Motorcycle helmets. Wearing a motorcycle helmet correctly can reduce the risk of death by almost 40% and the risk of severe injury by about 70%. So we should wear a motorcycle helmet, especially helmets, correctly. So we have to put the chin strap correctly. Many times the chin strap is not put, and many times it is found hanging loosely on the head. So we should make sure that we put the chin strap, fix it tightly below the chin, and cover the face with the glass or the visor in front. And this almost reduces the death by 40% because there is no injury to the skull and head, and the risk of severe injury by 70%. So it's very important by this statement that the death risk of death by 40% and severe injury by 70% is that's the amount of risk the motorcycle helmet can actually do to a person. When motorcycle helmet laws are enforced effectively, helmet wearing increases to 90%. So effective legislation and punitive measures, when they are implemented and a person doesn't wear a helmet, and compulsory wearing of helmet, both the driver as well as the pillion rider can actually prevent accidents, and they should be increased up to 90%. Requiring helmets to meet a recognized safety standard. Many a times counterfeit helmets are available or not of a good make, and this many times may not be effective enough to prevent a person from getting the impact of a collision to the head in the event of a crash. So make sure that when you buy a helmet, it should be of having certain safety standards, and it should be genuinely from a good company or from a good from a shop where it sells genuine products. So they are very important as far as a person's injury to the skull and head is concerned. Seat belts and child restraints. Wearing a seat belt reduces the risk of fatality among front seat passengers by 40 to 50%. So compulsory wearing of seat belt should be done, and many times many countries they impose the rules of wearing the seat front seat passengers, especially the driver, and they should be wearing the seat belt along with the passengers. So this reduces the risk of fatality by 40 to 50%, and rear seat passengers by almost 25 to 75%. Mandatory seat belt laws and enforcement have been shown to be very effective in increasing seat belt rates. So if you put the laws, people will become conscious, and they become conscious, and they wear these seat belts properly, and to avoid being penalized by the road traffic police, or traffic police, or any other police. If correctly installed and used, Child restraints reduce deaths among infants by approximately 70% and deaths among small children by 54 to 80%. Next is distracted driving. Distractions are usually caused by mobile phones while driving. Many times, the mobile phones are in a sort of bane for people who drive, and one should not receive calls while driving, or one should put it in a very silent state and should not receive calls. So, the distractions caused by mobile phones can impair driving performance in a number of ways. Longer reaction times. The reaction time in the reflex is often slowed down. People don't get to put brakes or don't apply horn to warn the other pedestrians or other people on the road, and impede the ability to keep in the correct lane. And they keep on, they may not be able to stick to one lane, and as a result, they may cause accidents. Shorter following distances. Many times they don't maintain adequate distance between from the front vehicle. Many times they clump closer to the vehicle. So as a result, if the vehicle stops, the vehicle in front stops, there's every chance of your car dashing into that vehicle. So we must maintain a distance of 8 feet to 10 feet from the vehicle in front. So this is very, very important. Text messaging also results in considerably reduced driving performance. One should not text messages or ping messages while driving is very important, because many times our eyes are on the mobile and we do not tend to see what is happening on the road. We do not follow the traffic rules. Drivers using a mobile phone are approximately 4 times, see the relative risk, 4 times more likely to be involved in a crash than when a driver doesn't use a phone. So there is a 4 times the chance of being involved in a crash compared to a driver who doesn't use a phone. So make sure the driver doesn't receive calls, use the phone while driving, and if at all there is a call, the driver to make sure that he should stop at a place where it is very safe for him to stop, and he can attend the phone, moving to a safer zone, and he can attend the call. Actions that can be taken by governments include adapting legislative measures, enforce proper rules and laws, launching public awareness campaigns. The traffic police can always create awareness among the public regarding the accidents by various what we call health education sessions, and also conduct awareness campaigns in camps, and telling the people at junctions and areas, and informing them about how safety precautions, how safety use of safety measures can actually reduce accidents. Regularly collecting data on distracted driving. So this is also, data is very, very important. Public has to be made aware, and they should also and the penalty should be made considerably high, so that this will deter the person who is driving from distraction. Developing countries are very different from the industrialized countries with regard to the environment and the mix of vehicles in the traffic stream. So what are the differences between the developed countries and the developing countries? They're enlisted as below. In developing countries, we find large number of pedestrians and animals like cows and buffaloes, sometimes sheep, which we very often see on the highways and on the roads. They share the roadway with fast-moving and slow-moving vehicles. There's almost no segregation of pedestrians from wheel traffic. Large numbers of poorly maintained vehicles. Large numbers of motorcycles, scooters, and mopeds. Low driving standards. Large numbers of buses, often overloaded. Widespread disregard of traffic rules. Defective roads. Poor street lighting. Many a times the lights are not properly maintained on the roads, and many times the lights flicker, or there is very low light, or defective layout of crossroads. The crossroads that are there for people moving from one side of the road to the other, if they laid, and speed breakers also, if they're not properly laid, then they may result in accidents. Unusual behavior of men and animals, especially people who do the jaywalking, people who cross the road on their own without giving a scant regard to the traffic rules and regulations, and sometimes animals running amok on the road, sometimes bulls, sometimes other animals like dogs which may often cross the roads. They may also result in a lot number of accidents, especially in our country. In Southeast Asian region countries, semi-urban and rural areas contribute to 60 to 80% of road accident injuries, although media attention is focused on urban road accidents. Economic impact of RTAs. Road traffic injuries resulting from RTAs cause considerable loss to victims, their families, and the nation as a whole. These losses arise from the cost of treatment, including rehabilitation and accident investigation, as well as reduced or lost productivity for those killed or disabled by their injuries, or for family members who need to take off time of work to care for the injured. So cost of treatment and reduced productivity, because a breadwinner, if he is lost, a person who is doing a job, and if he is killed, the family suffers because there is no what you call earning member in the family who can support or sustain the family. Multiple causation. Accidents are a complex phenomenon of multiple causation. The etiological factors may be classified into two broad groups: human and environmental, which we'll see in the next slide. About 90% of the factors responsible for accidents are due to human failure. So it is most of the times we human beings, we men and women, children and adolescents are often responsible for the causation of accidents, and many of the psychological circumstances in which accidents occur are also not properly known. You can see in this slide what are the human factors, what are the environmental factors which are responsible for accidents. These factors cause increased vulnerability and a risk situation, and also there may be precipitating factors like heightened emotional tension, alcohol and drugs, and other precipitating factors like special traffic conditions, social pressure, traveling in groups, use of stolen vehicles also may result in accidents. So human factors, environmental factors, this is a natural pathogenesis of disease, how they will interact with each other to produce a disease. The various measures comprise the following. Number one is data collection, safety education, promotion of safety measures like seat belts, safety helmets, children and others, alcohol and drugs, as I said, other drugs like amphetamines, barbiturates, and cannabis, primary care like planning, organization, and management of trauma treatment and emergency care services, active service organization, and fully equipped specialized trauma care, which the government of India and the recent NMC bill also supports for the establishment of trauma care centers at various medical colleges and in hospitals near the highways. Elimination of positive factors like improvement of roads, imposition of speed limits, marking of danger points, enforcement of laws like driving test, medical fitness to drive, enforcement of speed limits, compulsory wearing of seat belts and crash helmets, checking of BSEs, roadside testing of alcohol, regular inspection of vehicles, periodic re-examination of drivers over the age of 55 years, rehabilitation services like medical rehabilitation, social rehabilitation, and vocational rehabilitation. And apart from this, we should also try to understand what can be, how these accidents are caused, what are the types of accidents, what are the human factors involved, what are the environmental factors involved, how, and this the entire subject of these accidents come under the new discipline called accidentology. How to collect the data and what data should be collected. There should be a basic reporting system of all accidents. When an accident occurs, we should be able to collect the data relating to the accident so that we can understand what measures that can be taken so as to reduce the impact of accidents, to reduce the number of accidents. The national data should be supplemented by special surveys and in-depth studies. These studies will bring about the risk factors, the circumstances, and the chain of events leading up to the accident. Detailed environmental data related to the road, vehicle, and weather must also be collected. The police have a mandatory duty, especially in many countries, to investigate accidents for legal and preventive purposes. Without adequate data collection, analysis, and correction, there will be no effective countermeasures, evaluation strategies for prevention. So police should do an inquiry and they should be able to investigate accidents. And this for legal purposes and also for further preventing accidents in that area. And so the data collection, its analysis and interpretation is very, very important. We should know, for example, the data that can be caused by cars, accidents caused by cars or two-wheelers or heavy vehicles like trucks, or because of particular climatic factors like rain, wind, or it can be due to a billboard that is distracting the driver, which may result in accidents, or it may be a blind curve, or it may be malfunctioning of a traffic lights. All this is very, very important. Safety education and this, especially regarding education, especially regarding the safety measures, should start at school. Children should be taught about the safety measures so that they can understand the importance of the safety measures, and they will very well be sensitized because of this education. The drivers must be trained in proper maintenance of vehicles and safe driving. Having a vehicle is an important thing, and at the same time maintaining the vehicle is very important. So maintaining the vehicle and also safe driving, we should be very conscious of the speeds and conscious of the people and the pedestrians that are driving on the road, that are walking on the road or driving small vehicles is very, very important, and we should strictly have safe driving measures. Young people must be educated regarding the risk factors, traffic rules, and safety precautions. They should be also be trained in first aid, so they should be able to do the CPR, and they should be also be knowing about the various rules of first aid, so that necessary first aid can be given to save a person from morbidity or mortality. Promotion of safety measures like seat belts. Seat belts, as we said, they reduce the risk of fatalities and non-fatalities by 50%. So seat belt is very, very important, especially when you're driving a car, light trucks or similar vehicles. And safety helmets, as we discussed earlier, they reduce the risk of injury by 30% on average and fatalities by 40%. They prevent the laceration of scalp to a great extent. Children. Another safety measure is to ensure the children remain seated when they're in a vehicle. Should not allow children to jump or play in a car or any vehicle. That may again increase the vulnerability of the children being affected by accident. They should usually be prohibited to occupy the front seats. They should be made to sit in the seats, and sometimes child restraints are also put so that the children are made immobile while being taken in a vehicle. So a few countries have introduced laws which require children under 12 to 15 years be seated in the rear seats only. Others like the use of door locks, proper vehicle design, use of laminated high penetration resistance windscreen glass, etc. Alcohol and other drugs. Alcohol impairs ability and increases the risk of an accident as well as the severity of its consequences. Conclusions of surveys carried out in several countries show that alcohol is a direct cause of 30 to 50% of road accidents. Other drugs like amphetamines, barbiturates, and cannabis impairs the ability to drive safely, and the Narcotics Control Bureau have been quite serious about this. People using these drugs, and they're also taking measures effectively now, recently. So all these drugs and alcohol should be avoided totally by driving a vehicle. Primary care, like planning, organization, and management of trauma treatment and emergency care services, should be a fundamental aspect of healthcare management process. Every hospital should be equipped with a trauma care center, and they should be well organized, having to deal with people who are affected by accidents. To achieve these ends, there should be accidents ASO, accident service organization, and one fully equipped specialized trauma care hospital in our major cities. Elimination of positive factors, like what we do is we need to improve the roads, imposition of speed limits, and marking of danger points, and enforcement of laws. Enforcement of laws is very important. People take it very lightly if the laws are not there. Legislation embodies modified set of rules. We should have a set of rules. They should be employed by the state to prevent accidents. What they are, strict driving tests. Many times driving licenses are issued to the people without doing a driving test. So make sure that the person drives a vehicle and is fit to drive a vehicle. Medical fitness to drive, enforcement of speed limits, wearing of seat belts and crash helmets, checking of blood alcohol concentration, roadside breath testing for alcohol, regular inspection of vehicles. If the vehicle has become pretty old, the vehicle should be condemned, discarded. Many times, vehicles like buses are brought from neighboring states. Actually, there are many vehicles in AP where they get the vehicles from adjoining states, and they use the vehicles, especially private vehicles, and there's no regular inspection of those vehicles by the traffic authorities, especially the brake inspectors. And as a result, there are a lot of accidents, a lot of, especially school children, especially these buses, refurbished old buses they use, and many times school children, many lives of school children are lost. So regular inspection of vehicles is very important, and periodic re-examination of drivers over the age of 55 years if they have any morbidity for cardiovascular risk factors and other serious diseases like diabetes, which may impair the person's ability to drive. So very important that they should be regularly examined over the age of 55 years. And rehabilitation services. They include medical rehabilitation by giving latest drugs and also doing surgery, social rehabilitation so that they can be acted by the society, and occupational rehabilitation that they should be given a job if they lose a job of a driver. So all these are very important. So they should be, injured persons should be taken care in these lines. The aim of rehabilitation is to prevent, reduce, or compensate disability and thereby handicap. As I said, accident research, the future of accident prevention is research. So this research involves gathering precise information about the extent, type, and other characteristics of accidents, correlating accident experience with personal attributes that the environments in which accidents occur, investigating new and better methods of altering human behavior, seeking ways to make environments safer by having adequate signage and see that the roads, wherever the danger points are there, are adequately having signage so that the people who are approaching the road, who are approaching a particular area, are made aware about the dangers involved, and evaluating more precisely the efficiency of control measures. Every time we see whether these control measures like enforcing seat belts or helmets or speed limits are effectively followed, and whether they have actually decreased the number of accidents that are occurring on the road. This, as I said earlier, this entire area, the branch that deals with all this is known as accidentology. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Road traffic accidents are very important from the university point of view. You always have a long question on that. Please do read that. I will meet in the next class. Thank you very much.
Agak channel